Hi guys, and thanks for joining us on the stream here at Fox 5 Live inside Fox 5 DC's Washington, D.C. newsroom. It's Thursday, August 2nd. You can see on the right hand of your screen, we're going to jump right into this news conference in Brooklyn, Iowa. This is where the family of that missing college student, Mollie Tibbetts, she's 20 years old, went missing on July 18th after she went running, apparently. And the parents are coming forward to express really their update on this and sort of how they really want someone to come forward. The father of Mollie said yesterday that he knows it's a small town and people know what people do there in Brooklyn, Iowa, and someone obviously knows something is what he said. So he will be speaking. The family of Mollie will be speaking coming up shortly. We're going to see them set up the scene here. And again, you can see sort of the missing persons poster there that they have ready. They're setting up the microphones for the family. So we're going to jump right into that, but a little bit of detail on that. Like I said, she went missing on July 18th, 20 years old, after she went for a run. Police have now ruled out her boyfriend, who was sort of integral to the initial search, and text messages and Snapchats that were exchanged on that night. Investigators are still kind of unsure what happened. They're working on this case, and we're going to try to provide you the latest tidbits that we have here from police and from the family. So looks like they're checking the mics. We're going to get ready for this. And yeah, jump on with us on the stream. We're going to have live breaking news for you throughout the afternoon and show you some of the top stories of our day as well. So we'll bring this up full screen, and if anything else breaks, we'll make sure we jump over to that too. But again, investigators still combing through evidence after she was last seen jogging and failed to show up for work. That was sort of the initial thing that tipped off people that she was missing. And yeah, we'll get some more information for you. I know a lot of people are reporting new things and people being ruled out and new kind of pieces of evidence coming forward. Well, yeah, we're about to hear from the parents. So stay on with us here. This is coming up next. So, guys, we're about to see the family of Mollie Tibbetts, this 20-year-old missing Iowa college student, come out and provide the latest of what they know. They are putting their full faith in the investigators, they say, and for now, investigators just can't find concrete evidence to figure this out. They're saying that they've been through dozens and dozens of people to kind of interview and witnesses of sorts, and they still have not been able to put this together. This is a small town in Iowa. And we're going to hear probably an emotional statement from the family, just kind of what they're thinking now and where the process goes from here. But again, Mollie Tibbetts, the student who went missing on July 18th after a purported went on a run from her home with her boyfriend who was in the home, and they've ruled him out as a suspect. So they're continuing to kind of look for more in this case. So we're going to hear the latest.
My name is Greg Willie. I'm the Vice President of Public Relations for Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa. And Mollie's mother was going to read a statement. After that, I'll explain a little bit about Crime Stoppers. And we'll field a few questions after that. The questions, we don't have anything relevant to the investigation. It'll be all pretty much about the fundraising, what our purpose is with that, and any questions about Crime Stoppers.
First of all, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us here today on Mollie's behalf. Second, I want to thank from the collective souls of all of Mollie's family and friends, the efforts that have been put in from the people in this town, in this county, in this state, in this country, and across the world. We appreciate every act that has been bestowed upon us. Thirdly, I would like to thank Steve Rhodes of Jasper Construction, who showed up on my doorstep a couple Mondays ago with his voice cracking and tears in his eyes saying, "Laura, we have to do something now to get a reward fund established." And Steve knows it didn't happen now. There was a lot of work. There were a lot of swear words, especially on my part. But as of, I believe, 9 o'clock yesterday morning, the reward fund, the Bring Mollie Tibbetts Home Safe Reward Fund, was established and was being funded. So with that being said, the family and friends of our daughter and our sister Mollie Tibbetts would like to announce that we have set up a Bring Mollie Tibbetts Home Safe Reward Fund at First State Bank here in Brooklyn, Iowa. We believe that Mollie is still alive, and if someone has abducted her, we are pleading with you to please release her. We are partnering with Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa to help facilitate the process of receiving information anonymously that we can use to pay for her release or information that would lead to her location. As of 10 o'clock this morning, we have raised $172,000 that would be paid to you as soon as Mollie is safely home. You can contact Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa at 1-800-452-1111 or email your tip online at www.crimestoppersofcentraliowa.com. And once again, that is anonymous. If anybody has seen anything that you feel is related to Mollie's disappearance, please also contact Crime Stoppers, and that information will be forwarded to law enforcement with your identity being protected. If you would like to also donate to the Bring Mollie Tibbetts Home Safe Reward Fund, you can go to Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa website for further information to make that donation. We are very thankful for all the efforts of law enforcement and our friends in searching for Mollie. It is our greatest hope that if someone has her, that they would just release her and claim that money that we have raised for her freedom. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm turning it over to Greg Wiley with Crime Stoppers of Central Iowa. Greg?
Thanks.
Yep.
What I wanted to kind of do in support of the family, until we get further information about Mollie, we are expecting her to be alive. This is kind of a unique thing we've done with Crime Stoppers. We want the individuals that may have her to come forward, and the biggest thing, I guess, is that the reward fund will continue to grow. What we do as Crime Stoppers, we're basically a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're run by volunteers here locally in Des Moines. All of us have real full-time jobs, but we love doing this because it helps the community. One thing we have to understand is that if we're going to be able to get her back, is that we've got to get this thing beyond our communities. If she was abducted and taken somewhere else, they have to understand that if they contact us, we can protect their identity. It's one thing to say that, you know what, call us and, we'll protect your identity, won't tell anybody. It's another thing to say that we don't know who you are, even if we wanted to know who you are. Our system is set up, we have a software system, it's called P3 software. It is purchased through Anderson software company. Basically, when that information comes in, it's encrypted and scrubbed. And so the only thing that is identified to that information is an ID number. That tipster then will have to pay attention to you guys and contact us back if a crime has been solved. We have no way of contacting them back. If we do get the opportunity to have an interaction with whatever the individual is, law enforcement gets this information pretty much immediately. We're not privy to it. We're just the facilitator of it. We're the safety net for law enforcement. We're great partners. Most of the public is not afraid to come forward and share information. We do not exist for those people. We exist for the other ones who, for whatever reason, would not come and communicate any information to the police, either because they're guilty of something themselves or may be involved in a crime. So that being said, we can take a few questions, but they're going to have to be pretty much tilted towards the reward fund and then questions about Crime Stoppers.
Well, do you believe that she was abducted?
At this time, that's one of the possibilities.
How can people donate? I know there's a link on the Crime Stoppers website. How does that work?
When you go to Crime Stoppers, we actually have a tab that has Mollie's name on it. You click that on, there'll be a way to wire the money in and also a way to a receipt that you can fill out and mail also that money in. We are a nonprofit 501c3. A lot of times those donations are tax deductible.
Ted Williams, Fox News. Can I have a question for Rob? Rob, can you tell us, this is your daughter, she's been missing since July the 18th. Can you tell us how the family is holding up?
The family's holding up just fine. We're setting our personal feelings aside. This is a fight for our daughter. And so we have all the tools that we can use, and I want to thank the media for coming here and helping us to share this story, because we are told very little by the authorities for very good reason. They are incredible partners. They put together an incredible investigation. It's large, it's sophisticated, it's aggressive, and they've been nothing but sensitive to our family. And to suggest otherwise is wrong. But they are not sharing information with us because they don't need to share information with someone who might be implicated in this. The other part is you, the media. You've been wonderful. You've taken us, our story, national and international, and to keep this story in the public conscience is essential, because this is going to be solved by someone coming forward with information. Either information that they think is trivial and not worth sharing, or information they think is going to implicate a loved one or a friend, and they're afraid of doing that. And I've been telling all of you, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. So come forward, share that information with the authorities, and let's bring Mollie home. And this is another tool in our arsenal. We're providing this fund to provide some financial incentive for someone who's otherwise reluctant to come forward. And if you can get this story out, then maybe we can bring Mollie home, and we'll all have a happy ending to this.
Rob, what do you make, Mr. Policy and you tell us, what do you make of that you went from $2,000 to $172,000?
I think it's a testament to all of the media and your ability to get this story out. It's been incredible, the partnership with the media, the national media and the local media, to get Mollie's story out and to humanize Mollie so that people can identify. Mollie isn't all that more different than your daughters or your sisters or your girlfriend. She's just a wonderful, normal, terrific person. And we all can identify with that. So let's bring her home. So anything you can do to keep this story in the public conscience it's essential.
Is there a way to determine how the furthest donation you got, is it overseas? I mean, how far are these donations coming from?
I don't know the details of all of that. I don't know that the amount is essential. It's just as much as the incentive is another tool that we can use. Across the street from here, Community Live Now is creating collateral t-shirts and buttons and pins and yard signs and magnets that go on cars with that number, with that tip number on. And so we can only fight that way. And so that's what we're doing. And Laura put together this fund. We've been on a separate track trying to work with you to help you get this story out. So we wake up every day at 2, 3 in the morning to fight. And Laura's fighting, the boys are fighting, Dalton's fighting, everybody in this community is fighting to get her back. And you guys are really helpful.
Hey Rob, good morning. The new sighting, the possible sighting of Mollie just announced confirmed by police yesterday. What does that, yes, it was a week ago.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so there was a sighting that they just said it's not her. And so they just said, sorry, apparently not her. There was a sighting in Missouri that they thought could have been someone that matched her description. So now we're learning it's not her.
But I think you raise a good point. People are reluctant to come forward with information because they think it's irrelevant or it's trivial. Nothing is irrelevant, nothing is trivial, and the authorities have told us as much. They have the resources to sort out what's right and what's wrong. So if you have something that's either trivial or something that's either could potentially implicate someone you know or love, come forward with the information. The authorities can sort that out and they can do it quickly.
Greg, have you ever had a reward this large in Crime Stoppers?
Well, the last one that we participated in was the Ashley Oakland murder back in 2011. Fortunately, in the communities that we live in, we don't get this opportunity, and we would rather not have to have it. The key thing in all this, like they were saying, is that the money can be an incentive for somebody to step up, especially if they have abducted her and possibly doing some other things monetarily. But the key part is that we can guarantee their identity. And what I explained before, we couldn't tell you who they were even if we wanted to tell you who they were. And that's crucial from what Rob said, as far as the individuals out there who don't want to be involved, feel like, well, if I say something now, they're going to come after me and want to talk to me, or in cases in the past when we've had mothers turn in sons, family members turn in other family members because they're out of control. They wouldn't have done that unless they were absolutely sure that their identity would be protected. And that's a crucial part, is what Crime Stopper does. We're the safety net. Law enforcement does a great job. Most of the community, public, is not afraid to get involved. We exist for that small majority of the public that would never participate unless they were guaranteed their anonymity.
How often have you seen a case turn into a successful recovery because of the fact that there was money involved?
Well, locally, we haven't had a lot. I know I served on the board nationally several years ago, and there are stories all over the place where the amount of money did get somebody's attention, and they did come forward because they were confident they could come forward and be protected, and no one would know who they are. There's going to be a lot of dynamics. What we're trying to do is shake the tree. We want somebody to come forward, even if it's not real, at least to start a conversation with somebody. Somebody might know that she's being held by somebody, but would never say anything, because if they said something, they may think that reciprocity or their life might be in danger. We can guarantee that whoever gives this information up, their identity will be protected.
How do they get the money if it's anonymous?
They'll get, when they put in the tip, they get a random number that matches that tip. So if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they'd have to contact us back and say, hey, I saw in the media. Well, in this case, if they got them, if they got Mollie, they're going to call in and say, hey, I see there's a reward, I want to let her go. And then that negotiation will be done with law enforcement, and a whole new dynamic will come into play. And we hope that dynamic comes into play. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Laura, I heard you're really the main force behind this reward fund. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that process has been over the past several days, putting this all together, organizing all of this?
I wasn't the main force. It was a collaborative effort between Steve Rhodes and I. And I had been getting emails, I believe through the bank, that there was money sitting out there. Rob still lives in California. Rob and I lived in California. We have a ton of friends there. And people were getting angry as of 3 days ago, Steve and I have been working on this, but about 3 days ago, like, we have money, we have substantial money, and we want to help. So the reward fund was easy enough to get set up, but you know, as through all processes, especially when money's involved, we had to work with lawyers and, you know, just be sure everything was where it should be. But it was just flying by the seat of your pants, because I've never set up a reward fund for my daughter before. And if it wasn't for Steve, he and I working together, I couldn't have done it. So with that being said, I'll take your next question.
We're 2 weeks on. Just tell us how you're getting by day to day and what you're doing morning, noon, and night, just to look for her and get through this emotionally.
Every day I feel Mollie's presence with me. You know, sometimes I just feel her sitting on my shoulder. And Mollie was an incredibly strong young woman. And I don't know that I have the strength in me, but Mollie's lending me her strength every day, every night. And yes, I have my moments of complete meltdowns, but it is through this strength that is somehow, and I don't know how, being bestowed upon me, that I am able to get through every morning, every noon, every night.
Greg, if nobody claims the reward, what happens to the fund?
Well, what we put together was those funds, the donors would have a choice through the process to make a decision if they wanted the funds back. If not, the funds would then roll into the Mollie Tibbetts family and with Crime Stoppers. And at that point in time, a decision would be made, whether it be a memorial if that we got to that place, or an ongoing deal. There's a 2-year limit on it right now. They actually, Oakland, one we put together for that family and friends, got to $150,000. We still have that sitting in a side account because that's how that was set up. It was to roll into our general account. This will roll back into the family and with Crime Stoppers, and at that point they'll make a decision what to do with it.
My question is for Dalton Jack. Dalton, this was your girlfriend, and this is your girlfriend, Mollie. What would you like to say to individuals who perhaps have abducted Mollie?
You know, if they're listening, then I would just like them to know that, imagine this was you. Everybody has a Mollie in their life, a person that has affected them in a way that she affected everybody standing up here right now. And imagine if this was you, somebody had taken your Mollie. Wouldn't you want to help? Wouldn't you want her back? How would you feel? Just do the right thing and, you know, let her go, pretty much.
Mr. Tibbetts, can you say whether or not you think Mollie was abducted at this point?
I don't want to speculate on anything that might have happened, but I do think she's out there, and I think we can bring her home. And it's our responsibility as a community to do that, to do everything we can do. And everyone in the media is doing what they can do. It's really fantastic, feels great to our family. Everyone in the community is doing it. And I think everybody in the country has adopted Mollie. So let's keep at it. Let's go get her.
One thing to add is that when we started and advertised some of the Crime Stopper information, that information, we had since Monday, about another 200 tips come in. Those tips went into a fusion center and are disseminated pretty much immediately to the local authorities. Anytime we get a tip, you know, whether it be from California, Florida, Missouri, when that tip comes in, it is routed to that law enforcement agency in that area. And that's done pretty much immediately. I do have the statement that Laura had said. If you wanted the hard copy of it too after the news conference, they'll be up here for you.
Greg, one last question. Has DPS and the Sheriff's Department and the FBI signed off on this this move here?
Well, it's kind of a parallel effort. I mean, this is a fundraising effort. If we, through raising funds, can get other individuals to contact us, which means they're contacting the FBI, they're contacting the Sheriff's Department. As far as getting with them and having a strategy, the family and Crime Stoppers, we basically stepped up and did it on our own. I mean, we all have different parts we play. Law enforcement does a great job investigating, but they're not in the fundraising business. That's why it took a while to try to get this momentum going. I don't anticipate, over all the years I've been involved with Crime Stoppers and all the other organizations that have facilitated with law enforcement, there really isn't any damage that could be done other than we're going to get a lot more tips, and there'll be a little, not all the tips are great tips. Out of those 200, if you get a half of them that really truly have substance, that's probably not too bad. You get some goofy people out there saying goofy things, but we'd rather have the goofiness, and we'll figure that out after the fact. And if anybody, like I said, if you're afraid to come forward, we guarantee that the information you give us will go to law enforcement, they won't know who you are, and if there's a reward involved, you'll have your tip number, you just contact us back and we'll get you what you need. If there's no more questions, I guess at this point in time, you can pick up the hard copy of what Laura read. If there's any additional things that you need, I can leave a business card up here and you can contact me by email. It's my real job, so this is a Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, guys, so that's the latest on Mollie's family in Brooklyn, Iowa, where this all happened. I noticed a few of you on the stream offering some of your comments and thoughts on this. It's quite a crazy situation. Police say they've been through about 200 leads already, and they have not found what the connection they need to make. And you hear from the father, really an impassioned kind of call, thanking the media, calling out for this to be a continued fight, just to keep her name in headlines and to keep talking about this and working on this. They do believe she's out there. So it really is such a crazy investigation. We'll have more from this as much as we can. We're going to keep our eye on this case, and as we report on it, we'll keep you guys in the loop here on our live stream. So let's switch gears a little bit, guys, and talk about some of the top stories of today, including some of the politics, some of the stuff that Trump was involved in yesterday. Today, he'll be at another rally later on this evening. We should bring that live to our Facebook page, but for now, just kind of a recap of yesterday, some of the top stories that we've been working on.
Persistent protests. Iran state press reports say parliament has summoned President Hassan Rouhani to answer for the economic conditions in his country. And next week, the U.S. begins targeting more of Iran's economy, restoring sanctions it once lifted as part of the Iran nuclear agreement.
I hope it works out well with Iran. They're having a lot of difficulty right now. I hope it works out well. And I have a feeling they'll be talking to us pretty soon.
Iran's government has rejected the president's offer to talk. The U.S. Treasury says it will reimpose sanctions Monday on Iran's trade in precious metals, aluminum, steel, coal, and software. In November, additional sanctions on Iran's energy, oil, and banking. Ahead of those sanctions, the value of Iran's currency versus the U.S. dollar has fallen, with the drop accelerating significantly since the Trump administration announced those additional economic sanctions, hitting a record low this week before recovering.
As the currency collapses and confidence in the Iranian government and confidence in the Iranian economy collapses, this too will create an impetus for the regime to try to come back to the table and negotiate.
Senior State Department officials say they're closely watching events in Iran and claim its economic situation demonstrates the administration's strategy is working. Officials say they plan to intensify the pressure until Iran changes its behavior and negotiates. State and Treasury officials say they've traveled to more than 20 countries, including those still part of the Iran nuclear deal, to warn governments and businesses of the dangers of conducting business in Iran. Though these efforts to isolate Iran come as U.S. adversaries and allies engage with Iran. The countries remaining in the nuclear agreement are negotiating to salvage the deal. Two U.S. officials say Iran is expected to soon launch about 100 small boats to demonstrate its ability to potentially shut down a vital international waterway, the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. officials say Iran typically runs these drills in the fall. At the State Department, Rich Edson, Fox News. Two U.S. officials say Iran
and just said, bye, I love you, and kissed her bye.
The boyfriend of missing college student Mollie Tibbetts recalling the last time they were together. She's a student at the University of Iowa and was last seen leaving her boyfriend's home for a run. Now dozens of law enforcement personnel are on the ground in the small community of Brooklyn, Iowa, which is about an hour east of Des Moines.
It's Brooklyn. You don't lock your doors. It's a very trusting community, and this is like the first time anything like this has ever happened.
Police ruling out any wrongdoing by the boyfriend. Dalton Jack was 100 miles away at the time of Mollie's disappearance and quickly started reaching out to those back home when he learned the news.
Contacting my family, her friends, literally anybody to go look for her.
Mollie's boyfriend, father, and brothers not giving up hope, believing she will come home.
We know she's fighting as hard as anyone to get back home.
And even though police have combed through more than 200 leads, Mollie's father says no bit of information is too small.
Everyone knows everyone. Everyone talks to everyone. And you can't do anything there without someone seeing it. So we need to get that person or persons to come forward with that information. If people don't have anything to hide, they don't have anything to fear.
The massive search continues along jogging routes Mollie may have used. More than 400 friends and neighbors volunteered for the initial search, and that number still is growing. In Los Angeles, Jonathan Hunt, Fox News.
Fox News has learned that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has not agreed to demands from President Trump's attorneys to limit questioning to matters of collusion, that he still wants to ask questions regarding obstruction of justice and a few other topics. One concession from Mueller: according to sources, he has agreed to reduce the number of questions from his initial list of 49 and is willing to accept some answers in writing, though others he still wants oral answers to. Sources say talks with the special counsel continue, but add there is a long way to go. Rudy Giuliani told Fox News his inclination is still to say no to an interview, but that President Trump wants him to keep talking with Mueller. News of the Mueller response followed a tweet this morning in which President Trump criticized the investigation in his strongest language yet. The president tweeting, "This is a terrible situation, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now before it continues to stain our country any further." The White House was quick to proclaim the president was only airing his frustration, not telling Sessions what to do.
The president is stating his opinion. He's stating it clearly, and he's certainly expressing the frustration that he has with the level of corruption that we've seen from people like Jim Comey, Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe.
The president may have simply been blowing off steam, as he has done many times in the past, but the net effect was to put the spotlight squarely back on the Russia investigation. Democrat Adam Schiff on Twitter proclaimed the statement was an attempt to obstruct justice, hiding in plain sight. Even Maine's Republican Senator Susan Collins found the tweet ill-advised.
There's clearly no cause for firing Mr. Mueller, and I don't think it's going to happen. The president's tweet is unfortunate. I think it's inappropriate for him to be commenting on an ongoing investigation.
The president's lead outside counsel, Rudy Giuliani, thought it necessary to clarify the president's intent.
He's established a clear sort of practice now that he expresses his opinions on Twitter. He used the word should, he didn't use the word must, and there was no presidential directive that followed it.
As the White House was dialing back the president's tweet, it was ramping up the trade dispute with China, announcing today that the next $200 billion in Chinese goods to be targeted by tariffs could be taxed at a rate of 25%, more than double the initially proposed 10%.
The bottom line is the president's going to continue to hold China responsible for their unfair trade practices. This has gone on for long enough, and he's going to do something about it.
China's response was swift and sharp.
U.S. pressure and blackmail will not work. If the U.S. takes further measures that escalate the situation, China will definitely fight back.
The White House calculates the trade battle with China this way. In 2017, China bought about $130 billion worth of goods from the United States. The U.S. bought more than $500 billion worth from China. So in an escalating tit-for-tat over trade tariffs, the White House believes it has far more bullets in its arsenal than China does. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
Police releasing the identity of 62-year-old Joseph James Pappas, the person they suspect shot and killed Dr. Mark Houseknecht on his way to work last month.
There's a lot of planning and, sadly, some skill.
A tip led police to Pappas, who was not found in his home, but a search turned up telling evidence.
The house has been cleared. Evidence has been obtained that ties this man to this crime, and we believe that this absolutely is the killer.
Authorities then issued an arrest warrant for Pappas on a murder charge. They say he may be armed and considered suicidal. Neighbors say they are stunned.
He was just a nice man. You know, you don't expect people that you know that to do something like that.
Officials now say the killing may have been revenge. Pappas's mom died on the doctor's operating table more than 20 years ago.
One of the tips included the fact that the suspect's mother was a patient of the doctor and died during surgery over 20 years ago. So it appears that this may be a 20-year-old grudge that this man held.
Dr. Houseknecht was fatally shot while riding his bike to work at Houston Methodist Hospital on July 20th. According to authorities, a man believed to be Pappas rode past the doctor on another bicycle, turned, and fired 2 shots. Dr. Houseknecht practiced medicine for more than 40 years. He treated Bush 41 for an irregular heartbeat in 2000. In New York, Rich Dennison, Fox News.
As wildfires continue to ravage parts of Northern California, more and more firefighters are joining the front lines with a fire season that is nothing short of challenging.
Whatever resources are needed, we're putting them there.
California's governor promising resources for the unpredictable battle.
We have 13,000 firefighters on the fire lines just in California.
And for them, it's a long and tiresome fight. Wind, heat, and steep terrain adding to the stress. Residents posting signs of gratitude to encourage the crews. More residents affected by the Carr Fire allowed to go back home. But with over 1,000 houses torched, the return is emotional.
It's hard because it's, a week ago this was just a, normal neighborhood, and now it's just utter devastation.
It was difficult. It was hard. Meanwhile, the battle to contain the ranch and river fires continues as the fires consume more of the dry landscape, thick smoke, and haze covered communities.
We're a long way out from containment, from full containment on the fires. And every day it's done its own thing.
Thousands forced to evacuate, but not everyone is willing to leave. One man installed his own fire hose and stayed behind to protect his property.
It's the only home my family, my daughters rather, have known.
And fire crews being spread even thinner with a new fire igniting in El Dorado, California, Wednesday.
We have a long way to go in this fire season, and as we saw last year, fire season can go right up through December and into the early parts of the winter. So we're prepared in this for the long haul.
As the wildfires grow, so does the cost to combat them. California has already spent more than a quarter of its annual fire budget just 1 month into the fiscal year. In Anderson, California, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
He's an actor, activist, author, and now app maker. George Takei, best known for his role on Star Trek, has created a new app.
I'm a political animal, and I'm also a cat lover. We thought we'd combine the two together, politics and cats.
One that personifies the president as this famous feline, the virtual reality House of Cats, a nod to the Netflix presidential thriller House of Cards.
If you take some steps back and see it in a larger context, these fraught times also are absolutely preposterous. They're ridiculous.
Other characters in the augmented reality app include Meowlania Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and North Korea's Kim Jong-un as Little Rocket Pug. The 81-year-old Democrat who spent time in an internment camp during World War II has been a vocal opponent of the Trump administration, especially on immigration issues. While he takes his activism seriously, Takei says laughter makes a good coping mechanism.
We have an opportunity to laugh at it and make satire out of it, a little mockery of the situation. And I think that's necessary for good health.
The app is available for most Apple and Android devices for 99 cents. A portion of that will go to benefit Refugees International. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
Kelseyville is coming back to life after evacuation orders were lifted last night. The town of 3,400 went through advisory evacuations to mandatory evacuations. Many people grateful and glad to be back left thinking they might very well lose their homes.
If you want to know what's going on in a post-evacuation town, all you got to do is come to a place like this, a historical place, the Brick Tavern.
And I found out we were going to be open today, and I've gotten a lot of phone calls already this morning asking if we were open, so it's just a gathering place for this small community.
Very scary, very, very scary. That's why I was up on the roof where I live, and I was squirting it down with the hose, squirting the tree down with the pitch in it, because that's what was scaring me most.
It was real scary because you don't know, I mean, whether to leave or stay, but when they say mandatory, you want to get out because you don't really know how close the fire really is to you.
But this is far from over, especially for Lakeport's 4,800 people.
There's definitely a concern of ours. The fire moved out of the ridges into the unincorporated part of Lakeport on the northwest side. That prompted a pretty large response into the community of Lakeport to defend structures, to put out hotspots.
Even in areas where the fires burned days ago, there's still enough unburned vegetation that hotspots can and do reignite into major fires of their own. Bulldozers cut fire breaks and other fire roads for equipment nonstop, part of the overall plan to thwart the flames.
Well, we've been saying for a while that it seems unlikely that President Trump would agree to be questioned by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, and his most recent tweet on that subject seems to drive the point home. President Trump's frustration is obviously growing. There are signs that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is getting close to wrapping up his investigation into possible Russian collusion and obstruction of justice, but Trump has had enough, training his fire on beleaguered Attorney General Jeff Sessions. This is a terrible situation, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now before it continues to stain our country any further.
The president's tweet is unfortunate.
Even some Republicans cringed, and some Democrats called it nothing less than obstruction of justice. The White House says it was just the president venting.
It's not an order, it's the president's opinion.
So what is the president's opinion on sitting down with Mueller to answer questions? That doesn't look likely. We've learned that Mueller has refused a request to limit questions to allegations of collusion, wanting to get into possible obstruction as well, but negotiations continue.
We responded to their proposal. It took about 10 days, and yesterday we got a letter back from them. And now we're in the process of responding to their proposal.
But there has been some movement. Sources say Mueller has agreed to limit the overall number of questions that he would ask Trump and allow some written responses as well, but no agreement yet. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
Today, around the Mary Lake community near Reading is where some people's worst fears were finally recognized.
It's hard, guys. It's an emotional day, but we're doing okay. Reading, I think, will be just fine.
It's hard because it's, a week ago this was just a, normal neighborhood, and now it's just utter devastation.
Officials with CAL FIRE saying today that the Carr fire has destroyed more than 1,000 homes and damaged nearly 200. Residents here had to get out in a moment's notice last Thursday.
It was terrifying, and it roared over the mountains in, a matter of minutes. It was so fast. It was within 10 minutes, and it just came barreling through. It was hard. It was difficult. It was hard.
Today, almost a week later, families here got a first-hand look at what they were facing.
Did you expect the worst?
Oh, I knew it was coming already. Someone came through and told us. There's a little bit of a calm today, seeing it for the first time, for sure.
And the human kindness in this community today was thicker than the smoke. Residents doing all they can to ease the pain of others.
I just give her a big hug. There's nothing you can really say. But as long as everyone's safe, that's what's important.
What I love is humanity, the humanity that I've seen, and people will be fine.
Yeah, it's nice because everybody's, pulling together, and everybody's, donations, and we've had 1 million offers for places to stay, and people are offering to let us use their, RVs if we need to. So it's been really good. Everybody's been very, very helpful.
They should have a Kroger lot.
Leanne says she swipes her Visa credit card at Kroger's across the Mid-South, but a new Visa credit card ban in Kroger-owned Foods Co. stores in California may expand beyond just those supermarkets.
It's a major credit card, and if you're a carrier of a credit card, you should be able to spend your money no matter where you at.
Right now, the Visa ban only targets 21 stores and 5 fuel centers in California and goes into effect later this month.
By them not being able to accept Visa credit cards, that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Some shoppers tell me they're scared people will have to use other forms of payment if this new rule hits our region.
The people who don't like to carry around cash because, it's Memphis.
The Kroger-owned supermarket said in a statement the high costs associated with Visa's interchange rates and network fees are the highest total fees of any credit card brand and are inconsistent with our customer promise.
If you got a credit card and you come here to buy your groceries and they say, nah, you can't buy groceries, we ain't accepting your card, of course you're going to go somewhere else.
The company says it will pass along the savings in the form of great prices on the items customers purchase the most. But some people think many customers won't be able to reap the benefit.
I have to go somewhere else.
As for Leanne, she says she's not going anywhere.
Use the other one.
I don't know, it was like normal, I guess. I didn't really feel anything.
Sarah, along with her sisters and mother, walked the halls of Santa Fe High School. The family shared this video from inside the school with Fox 26. Today was the second day that Santa Fe ISD offered a walkthrough of the Santa Fe High School campus, something they typically offer for new students, but they're inviting all students and their parents since some students felt that they were not ready to return to class back in May following the shooting.
I think it's good to go there ahead of time before you got to go for your first day, right? So you can get that feeling, I guess, come back to school being in there. Because I don't know how it would have been if we just came back. First time being there was the first day of school. That'd been weird, a little weird.
Santa Fe ISD says this is part of the healing process and want the students to feel safe when they return on August 21st. The students were not allowed inside the construction areas or classrooms, but there were counselors and faculty present to offer assistance.
They want the kids to be able to go to the school and see that everything's okay.
Sarah's mother, Sonia, tells Fox 26 that she has 3 daughters attending the high school. She tells them to be strong and always pay attention to their surroundings.
I don't feel anything negative about the school. I mean, that could have happened anywhere. And that person just picked that spot to do it.
As for Sarah, she's more concerned with focusing on her health so that she can start school on time.
It's just, I don't know if I'll physically be able to go back because it hurts to be up. And also when I'm hot, my arm starts to hurt. So we'll see when the time comes when it gets closer to school.
Natasha Geigo reporting, Fox 26 News.
No monkey business here. Police got a serious and strange call over the weekend from the Santa Ana Zoo.
There were several of these animals running freely in the zoo.
Authorities believe multiple people snuck into the zoo on Saturday morning. Police tell us there was no forced entry. They got in by scaling the fence, kind of like a monkey. They cut holes in the lemur and monkey cages. They then stole one of the ring-tailed lemurs worth $3,000.
His name's Isaac. He's 32 years old. I'm told the second oldest in North America.
There's only 2,000 ring-tailed lemurs living in the wild and 2,500 in zoos.
The lemur is on the endangered species list for the federal government, and it is a federal crime to steal one.
The next day, Santa Ana police were contacted by the Newport Beach police after someone dropped off the missing lemur in a crate at a Marriott hotel lobby in Newport Beach. Here's the surveillance video. The crate had this note attached to it. This belongs to the Santa Ana Zoo. It was taken last night. Please bring it to police. Despite their change of heart, police want to nab the lemur snatchers.
Detectives are just getting the case. Any help we can get from the public, we'd appreciate it.
All the other lemurs and monkeys were recaptured, but the crime threw a monkey wrench in the zoo's operation. The damage will cost them $1,000. And as for our lost lemur, Isaac,
he's now back at the zoo and doing very well with the rest of his family.
Great news there, but police are still looking through that surveillance video from the zoo and the hotel to find out who did this. Reporting at the Santa Ana Zoo, I'm Vanessa Borge, Fox 11 News.
It all started with this post. A fellow rider noticed this bus driver giving an elderly man a drink of water.
It had to be smoking hot out there.
The bus driver, this man, Mike Blair, says he had no idea someone was taking his picture, but he did notice the elderly man at the bus stop.
This one gentleman, he didn't board, and he seemed like he started to kind of grasp the wall there and seemed to be like in distress.
Blair helped the man onto the bus.
And I go, well, I got to do something else. And I had a bottle of water that I brought in my lunchbox, so I got my lunchbox out and gave him the bottle of water.
It only took 10 minutes for the man to get back on his feet.
He got off the bus, and as he was walking off the bus, he said, thank you. He said, you know, I'm 92 years old. Simply amazed.
This small act of kindness now making the rounds on social media. Blair says he didn't know about his newfound fame until the RTC and his employer Keolis reached out to him.
I guess I might have to learn how to do Twitter.
But Blair says what he did was nothing special.
We're all brothers and sisters. I think anybody would have done that.
Especially a fellow bus driver. Keolis trains all of its drivers to spot signs of dehydration.
When temperatures during the day are over 105, before the bus drivers leave the yard, we remind them to be mindful of passengers.
Blair doesn't want the attention or fame, but he hopes this picture will inspire someone else.
Well, maybe it'll touch people's hearts so they can be nice too, you know.
All right, guys. Well, if you are on with us, we'll take it back to the newsroom for just a second. You can see the newsroom getting their research right now about what is to be right now a tornado warning in the area. If you guys are local to us, if you're in one of these counties surrounding the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia, there is a warning. Just want to let you know in Stafford and Fauquier counties in Virginia. This is supposed to go on until 1 p.m. and then we'll advise and update the situation there. So if you are in those counties, a warning is different from a watch in that it means the National Weather Service has actually detected some sort of tornado on the radar. And again, that's in effect until 1 p.m. today. So that's close to now. But when that warning is issued, they ask that people seek safe shelter immediately. So that's what we're relaying back to you guys. And those were some of the top stories that have been sort of circulating for today, August 2nd. But I want to show you also kind of a more lighthearted one this morning. The first Guinness brewery in the U.S. since 1950 has now been established in Baltimore. So really close to us here in D.C., just about an hour away. And our reporter, Bob Barnard, this morning got to go there, check out sort of the fanfare and what's going to be happening when it opens tomorrow. He got an inside look at that. So take a look at this from our morning show.
Opening of their newest location, and it's right here in the DMV. So who better to raise a pint than our own Bob Barnard, who joins us live from Hallthorpe, Maryland. Still standing, I think. Well, you are leaning up against the bar there, Bob.
Yeah. We've been here a while and have had the pleasure to sample a few. This place opens to the general public tomorrow at 3, and we've been getting a little preview here from the tap, and it's been great. This is what they're making here. It's a Guinness Blonde, and joining us to talk more about it is Ryan Wagner. He is the Guinness Brewery Ambassador. It's also, you hear him at Camden Yards. He's the voice of the Orioles in the ballpark. Ryan, tell us, this is pretty cool because Guinness, which is based in Dublin, right, has never really brewed beer here in the U.S. under its own umbrella, in a sense, right?
So we had a brewery here about 60 years ago in Long Island City in Queens, New York. This is the first brewery that's purpose-built by Guinness. This is the first time we've on purpose built a brewery here.
And what are you making here? Not the classic dark stout, is that right?
Absolutely. So the stouts, the iconic stouts, Guinness Draft Stout, Foreign Extra, those will still be made in Dublin. They do a pretty good job over there. We don't want to take it away from them. So Guinness Blonde is going to be the focus here. That'll be the first beer you see out in the market. But what we're going to be doing here is new creative beers by an amazing brewing team that we built. We want to take advantage of the American craft beer industry.
It's hot. And take a look up there. We're in the tap room here. So this is like going to a winery, right? You can come here, sample different beers, watch it being made, right? There's you can take a tour, gift shops, all that kind of stuff. Some of the names here are pretty cool. You would tell me about the Guinness FES, on the far left there, second one down. Tell me about that particular.
Yeah, Foreign Extra Stout is our longest or oldest continually brewed beer. So that recipe dates back to about 1801. So we have an incredible brewing history all the way back to 1759. So this is a long book. We're starting to write a new chapter here with some of the new beers we're making as well.
And what's the thinking behind Guinness doing this? I mean, they could have picked anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They're here in the U.S. and they're here in Baltimore County.
Well, in terms of being here in the States, it's important for us to be a part of the American craft beer industry. It's as creative and as diverse a brewing culture as there exists in the world, and we wanted to be a part of that. And then here in Baltimore, Baltimore is an amazing place. I'm a Baltimore native. And there's an incredible heritage and history here, two things that are very important to Guinness. The people here are amazing. There's an amazing growing beer scene as well. And Baltimore deserves something like Guinness coming in and building this brewery.
You open to the public tomorrow at 3. There's a ribbon cutting, though, in about an hour, and
Yeah.
Governor Hogan will be here. Tell me what the experience here, we have about a minute left. When someone comes here tomorrow, you're open 3 to 9, you're first, and boy, lucky us. And I'm only taking a little sip because I've been drinking out of the little tumblers earlier. What's the experience? People here try the beers, buy the beers, kind of see how it's done?
So you said the key word, right? Experience. We want to give people a unique experience. And so whether that's touring around and seeing the agricultural elements, growing hops, growing barley on site, seeing some of the historical elements that we brought over from St. James's Gate in Dublin, or even that we found here on site in Baltimore because this site has an incredible history, this is a brewery for everyone. If you want to come in and sit and enjoy one of the new beers, if you want to come have a glass of that iconic stout, or if you just want to wander around and check out what we've built here, no matter what you want to do, we're going to give you an experience.
And what are you drinking there? This is the blonde?
Yeah, so you've got Guinness Blonde. I've got Northwest IPA, an IPA brewed in the traditional sense of a West Coast, northern part of the West Coast. So this is it's going to run the gamut, man. No matter what you drink, we're going to have something for you here.
That's awesome. All right, Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan Wagner is the Guinness Brewery Ambassador, and I'm going slow, guys, because it's still early, but maybe I'll see you tomorrow.
So cool little clip there from Bob Barnard this morning when he got to visit Baltimore, and how exciting that is for our area, the first ever since in the U.S. since 1950. All right, guys, we are going to switch topics now and go over, you saw this in the headline, NASA is having a pre-briefing from Cape Canaveral, Florida about the Parker Solar Probe. This is so spectacular, so amazing. On August 11th, the first of mankind's first ever visit to the sun is going to be attempted by NASA on August 11th. So coming up really shortly, in the next few weeks, and it's going to be an unmanned probe that will try to touch our nearest star's surface, and it's never been done before. A lot of cool details, sciencey details from NASA. They'll explain that as well, but we're going to have that pre-briefing coming up from Florida. So this is a sort of a spacecraft that will attempt to explore the outer surfaces and the atmosphere of the sun, something we've never done before. So many strides in science happening over these past few years. It's amazing the time we live in. So if you're interested in that stuff, I know it's super fascinating. That's what we're going to have coming up next. That's what we have coming in live. So anything else that is breaking, we'll jump in. But for now, guys, take a small break. Take a look at the rainy day it is right here in D.C. The White House, you see the rain coming down, and we'll be back in a little bit, just a few moments, actually. It's starting in about 5 minutes with NASA's solar probe pre-briefing from Florida.
asteroid, and even our sun. John has also played a direct critical role in the successful launches of numerous Earth observation and science missions. Those of us routinely impacted by hurricanes know how important those weather satellites are. Whenever an issue related to a flight computer or navigation system would arise, the first question is always, what does John have to say about the issue? And his advice and consult are highly regarded throughout the launch vehicle and aerospace industry. John, thank you for your outstanding support and congratulations for a medal that is very well deserved.
Mr. Magasano is being recognized for sustained superior support to the NASA Launch Services Program since January of 2001. Our next honoree is Dr. William McClintock.
Dr. Bill McClintock is an extraordinary.
Okay, so it looks like NASA is finishing up with this honors award ceremony that they had pre-planned in their schedule, and then later on is going to be that pre-launch briefing that we're going to bring to you if we do get it in. So it all kind of hinges on what we see coming in on our feed. But I want to switch it up because we're just getting in a shot of the White House press briefing room. That's going to be coming up shortly at the top of the hour, we're being told. So I think that'll be important to kind of touch base with that and see what comes out of the briefing room today. And Sarah Sanders hosting that briefing. So we'll jump over there in just a second once we get that shot up. And hang on with us. We'll be back shortly.
to let the president sit down with Robert Mueller. One potential compromise could be if Mueller were to agree to written answers for all of the questions about obstruction of justice and then oral answers to all of the questions about whether or not there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, the president's lead counsels, are both of a mind to say no to an interview, but they are being told by the president, keep working it, see if it's possible. All of this, as you pointed out at the top, Harris, happening at the same time the president sent out that tweet yesterday, which seemed to be him leaning further into this idea of Jeff Sessions shutting down the Mueller investigation than he ever has before. But yesterday in New Hampshire, while he was up there campaigning for a Republican, Rudy Giuliani said, look, specifically at the president's language here, he never ordered Jeff Sessions to do anything. Listen here. So as to whether or not there will be an interview, I mean, it's a cliche, but, you know, that remains to be seen. We'll find out what the president's attorneys respond to Mueller with sometime next week. And Harris, I owe you a buck. I told you yesterday that when she was asked about this, Sarah Sanders would probably punt to outside counsel. She did answer some questions. She may again today, so I may owe you even more money. Thanks.
Well, the White House was coming under a lot of scrutiny over this past week for not holding it out for briefings in July, 5 briefings in June. They're no longer daily briefings, they're weekly briefings on average, although the last couple of days have been busy. Now, we'll talk to what happens in the next several minutes. Perhaps the White House will have a guest or two to come out here today. Maybe that's why they're having two briefings in a row. But I think when Sarah Sanders begins to question here in the briefing room, she is going to be asked about what President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, said earlier this morning with Mike Allen. That is not only the president's daughter disagreeing with take some time into supporting it going in another direction. And so when Ivanka Trump says no, the media are not the enemy of the people, I think that's very interesting. And I suppose should be asked about that, sort of thing, and be asked about that. But at the same time, there are all these other weighty issues in terms of what Giuliani, President Southside's lawyer, said yesterday with respect to the president and these legal options that are laying behind the scenes right now as to whether or not the president will actually sit down with Robert Mueller's team and answer questions about some of these areas they want to cover. As we've been reporting, the Mueller team is floating the possibility of dwindling down some of these questions in order to entice president's cooperation. I can tell you from talking to my own sources that are familiar with the discussions that go on inside the president's legal team. That is something that has been advocated for a long time. It's been hotly debated for some time. The president, at the end of the day, if he wants to fully put this behind him, is going to have to sit down, according to some people inside the president's legal team, is going to have to sit down and answer some of these questions, whether they're via email or they're in person or some combination of both. If the president does not do that, certainly I've heard discussed by people who are familiar with these discussions, that the president is just not going to fully put this behind him. And I think obviously that's going to come up as well. There's just a whole host of issues, obviously, Sarah Sanders would be asked about if she has an extended briefing here. But as you've seen before, especially when there's a couple of briefings for those who don't meet, sometimes you do have an administration official coming out to talk about whatever subject the White House wants on any given day. We may see that kind of here. I would be very suspect of that. Mark, there's nothing there. Here we go. What did you turn it on? That's it. Or should be wearing that. I don't think it's it's like a road jar.
Good afternoon. Since the beginning of his administration, President Trump has implemented a whole-of-government approach to safeguard our nation's elections. The president has made it clear that his administration will not tolerate foreign interference in our elections from any nation state or other dangerous actor. Last year, the president signed an executive order to strengthen and review the cybersecurity of our nation and its critical infrastructure. Last week, the president chaired a meeting of his National Security Council to address ongoing threats. He asked the officials standing next to me to brief the American people on the work being done to protect the integrity of our elections. Efforts are underway to provide cybersecurity assistance to state and local authorities and actions to investigate, prosecute, and hold accountable those who illegally attempt to interfere in our political and electoral process. To address these matters further, I want to welcome Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, FBI Director Christopher Wray, Secretary of Homeland Security Kirstjen Nielsen, Director of the National Security Agency General Paul Nakasone, and National Security Advisor Ambassador John Bolton to make some comments and take questions on this topic. As you all know, we've addressed what occurred during the 2016 election numerous times and rather extensively. The purpose of today's briefing is about what we are doing now and in the future to protect the integrity of our elections moving forward, and we ask that you stay on that topic. In order to help this run smoothly, we'd also ask that you direct your questions to a specific person. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ambassador Bolton to open up and make some comments.
Well, thank you very much, Sarah. What we'd like to address today is election security in the 2018 election and in the future. The President has made it very clear, I think, what his priority is. We've had, obviously, a number of inquiries from Congress on this, including a letter to me the past couple days from 5 senators, signed by Senator Schumer and 4 others. I have responded to that letter today. We've made copies available to you, and it forms a kind of framework for the briefing that the 4 heads of operating department and agencies are going to give you here today. They are the ones who are implementing and operationalizing the policy that we have developed. There are other agencies involved, but these are the 4 primary ones. And I think it's important that we address the question of the president's involvement in this, his leadership, his determination to prevent Russian and other foreign influence in elections. We meet on this constantly, the senior staff here in the White House. We meet with the heads of the different agencies involved. We discuss it quite regularly. In my tenure as National Security Advisor, less than 2 months, we've already had 2 full National Security Council meetings chaired by the President, and as I say, countless other discussions as well. Since January 2017, the President has taken decisive action to defend our election systems from meddling and interference. This includes measures to heighten the security and resilience of election systems and processes, to confront Russian and other foreign malign influence in the United States, to confront such aggression through international action, and to reinforce a strong sanctions regime. Now, as you know, elections are administered by state and local governments, so the federal role is to assist them. We'll be addressing that through the comments of the heads of the operating agencies. I might also say, by way of introduction, that many federal government actions to protect elections in the United States, such as those implemented by the intelligence community or law enforcement agencies, are necessarily sensitive and highly classified. We do not wish to make the efforts of our adversaries any easier through injudicious public disclosures. Nonetheless, we have offered to do before and continue to offer briefings to members of Congress in secure facilities. So what I'd like to do here, as Sarah said, is turn the briefing over to the people whose agencies have this responsibility. We'll start off with Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates. He'll be followed by the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen. She'll be followed by the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Christopher Wray, and then finally the Director of the National Security Agency, General Paul Nakasone. So, Dan.
Well, as Director of National Intelligence, I would like the American people to know that the intelligence community and all of its agencies are postured to identify threats of all kinds against the United States. The President has specifically directed us to make the matter of the election meddling and securing our election process a top priority, and we have done that and are doing that and will continue to do so. We have incorporated the lessons learned from the 2016 election and implemented a broad spectrum of actions to share more information across the federal government, as well as with state and local governments, and also with the public and the private sector. The intelligence community continues to be concerned about the threats of upcoming U.S. elections, both the midterms and the presidential elections of 2020. In regards to Russian involvement in the midterm elections, we continue to see a pervasive messaging campaign by Russia to try to weaken and divide the United States. These efforts are not exclusive to this election or future elections, but certainly cover issues relevant to the election. We also know the Russians try to hack into and steal information from candidates and government officials alike. We are aware that Russia is not the only country that has an interest in trying to influence our domestic political environment. We know there are others who have the capability and may be considering influence activities. As such, we will continue to monitor and warn of any such efforts. I am committed to making sure that the intelligence community is working together and integrating across organizations and missions and seeking greater transparency with the public. The ODNI has instituted a broad spectrum of actions covering collection, analysis, reporting, education, and partnerships, all designed to provide the best threat assessments to federal, state, and local officials, as well as to the public and private sector when necessary. For example, my office leads the Interagency Working Group, now meeting weekly as a push towards November, with Department of Justice, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, CIA, and NSA, inclusive of regional cyber and counterintelligence experts, all focused on ensuring election security and integration of our efforts. The intelligence community's focus right now is persistent support to the FBI, to the Department of Homeland Security, and other agencies in their election responsibilities, and my office is ensuring these organizations receive timely and proactive intelligence community support.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. I want to start by briefly mentioning that on Tuesday, DHS hosted the first National Cybersecurity Summit. This brought together government, industry leaders, and academia to discuss opportunities to join forces to counter threats to our nation's critical infrastructure. I want to thank all of those who joined us from academia, government, and the private sector, all who participated, and those who signed up to concrete actions to confront cybersecurity challenges. Across every critical infrastructure sector, from energy to financial services to transportation to communication and so many others, a single attack can have widespread and cascading consequences. I look forward to working with the nation's leading minds in the digital realm as we stand up the National Risk Management Center. But it's not just risk to our prosperity, privacy, and infrastructure we have to worry about, and that's why we're here today. Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and it has become clear that they are the target of our adversaries who seek, as the DNI just said, to sow discord and undermine our way of life. I fully share the intelligence community and the ODNI's assessments, past efforts, and those today to interfere with our election and of the current threat. Our adversaries have shown they have the willingness and capability to interfere in our elections. DHS has and continues to work closely with state and local election officials throughout the country by offering a range of services to help identify weaknesses in their election systems. Whether it's offering no-cost voluntary technical assistance or sharing best practices for securing online voter registration databases, or providing technical advice on ransomware and destructive malware, our department stands ready to provide tailored support based on each jurisdiction's unique needs. This is yet another example where one size does not fit all. I am pleased to inform you that to date, all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and over 900 local governments have partnered with DHS in order to bolster the resilience of the nation's election infrastructure. Various states also have organic capabilities and are engaging with the private sector and academia to improve the security of elections. Election infrastructure is not a destination. It requires aggressive and ongoing vigilance. Everyone must play their role to ensure that every vote is counted and is counted correctly. All of us up here today, members of Congress, state and local election officials, and the public. As all of us up here today gain new insights into potential adversaries and campaigns, we are committed to providing our partners with the government's best intelligence and information available. The progress we have made is real, and the nation's elections are more resilient today because of the work we are all doing. But we must continue to ensure that our democracy is protected. Thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to Director Ray.
Afternoon, everybody. Last fall, shortly after I became director, I stood up a new foreign influence task force at the FBI, which was designed to identify and counteract the full range of malign foreign influence operations, targeting our democratic institutions and our values. The task force now brings together across the waterfront of FBI expertise. So we're talking counterintelligence, cyber, criminal, and even counterterrorism, designed to root out and respond to foreign influence operations. For their part, our adversaries' influence operations have encompassed a wide range of activities. So just like we have a multidisciplinary response, that's because the threat is multidisciplinary. So just a few examples of some of the things we've seen over the past: targeting U.S. officials and other U.S. persons through traditional intelligence tradecraft, criminal efforts to suppress voting and provide illegal campaign financing, cyber attacks against voting infrastructure along with computer intrusions targeting elected officials and others, and a whole slew of other kinds of influence, like both overtly and covertly manipulating news stories, spreading disinformation, leveraging economic resources, and escalating divisive issues. But it's important to understand this is not just an election cycle threat. Our adversaries are trying to undermine our country on a persistent and regular basis, whether it's election season or not. There's a clear distinction between, on the one hand, activities that threaten the security and integrity of our election systems, and on the other hand, the broader threat of influence operations designed to manipulate and influence our voters and their opinions. With our partners, we're trying to counteract both threats. We have three pillars to our operational strategy. The first pillar is our investigations and our operations. And for a variety of reasons, which I hope are obvious, and including operational sensitivities, I'm not going to be able to describe the full extent of those efforts, but I will tell you that our Foreign Influence Task Force works with FBI personnel in all 56 FBI field offices. And even as we speak, we've got open investigations with a foreign influence nexus spanning field offices, FBI field offices across the country. So make no mistake, the scope of this foreign influence threat is both broad and deep. Second pillar, I said there were three pillars. The second is focused on information sharing and intelligence sharing. We're working closely with our partners in the intelligence community and in the federal government, as well as with our state and local partners, to establish a common operating picture. Just last week, as an example, we disseminated a list to our state and local law enforcement partners of various foreign influence indicators for them to be on the lookout for. Things like malicious cyber activity, social abnormalities, and foreign propaganda activities. The idea is to marshal additional eyes and ears in the fight. We're also working with our international partners to exchange intelligence and strategies for combating the threat, because this is, after all, a shared threat with our allies. The third pillar of our approach is based on our strong relationships with the private sector. Technology companies have a frontline responsibility to secure their own networks, products, and platforms, but we're doing our part by providing actionable intelligence to better enable them to address abuse of their platforms by foreign actors. So this year we've met with top social media companies and technology companies several times. We've given them classified briefings. We've shared specific threat indicators and account information and a variety of other pieces of information so that they can better monitor their own platforms. The reality is it's going to take all of us working together to hold the field, because this threat is not going away. As I have said consistently, Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day. This is a threat we need to take extremely seriously and to tackle and respond to with fierce determination and focus. And together with our partners, both those here and some of the other partners we've talked about, I'm confident that we can protect the integrity of our democratic institutions and maintain public confidence in our electoral process. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate the leadership and support from the President, the Secretary of Defense, the Director of National Intelligence. I believe our mandate is clear. As part of its mission to defend the nation, the Department of Defense is providing intelligence, information support, and technical expertise to the Department of Homeland Security for use by state and local officials to prevent foreign interference in our elections. This is a vital mission for us and the nation. It draws on our deep experience and expertise in continuing work in this area. Our support has been ongoing and will continue through the midterm elections. We are also providing intelligence and information leads to the Federal Bureau of Investigation on foreign adversaries who are attempting to sow discord and division within the American public. This information is shared with appropriate entities to alert them of malicious cyber actors. U.S. Cyber Command and the National Security Agency are tracking a wide range of foreign cyber adversaries and are prepared to conduct operations against those actors attempting to undermine our nation's midterm elections. These type of operations are sensitive and require confidentiality for success. I won't discuss the specifics except to state that our forces are well trained, ready, and very capable. I have complete confidence in the forces under my command. We will work in conjunction with other elements of our government to ensure we bring the full power of our nation to bear on any foreign power that attempts to interfere in our democratic processes. I'll turn it back over to the moderator.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, if we could stay on topic, and also if you could, when asking a question, direct it to a specific person. And as always, after we finish this part of the briefing, I'll be back to answer other questions on news of the day. John, go ahead.
Director Coates, if I could direct a question to you. Let me take you back, if I could, to Helsinki. The president seemed to indicate that he may believe Vladimir Putin when he says he didn't have any influence in the 2016 election. What is your belief about the Russian government involvement in meddling in 2016? And if, as you say, Russia continues to try to influence our electoral process, does that mean that nothing much came of the meeting with Putin, or is it other than government actors who were involved?
Well, in relationship to the 2016 election, of course, none of us were in office at that particular time, but both the president, the vice president, I think everyone on this stage has acknowledged the fact that the ICA was a correct assessment of what happened in 2016. We have subsequently made the determination to make this a top priority, that it doesn't happen again, and we're throwing everything at it, and we will have, and we'll be discussing that here today relative to my discussions with the president on whatever issue it is. I do not go public with that. I don't think that's the proper thing to do. So our focus here today is simply to tell the American people we acknowledge the threat. It is real. It is continuing, and we're doing everything we can to have a legitimate election that the American people can have trust in. In addition to that, it goes beyond the elections. It goes to Russia's intent to undermine our democratic values, drive a wedge between our allies, and do a number of other nefarious things. And we are looking at that also. But today we are here to talk about the elections coming up and what we're doing, ensuring the American people will have
If I
legitimate.
could just clarify, so because both you and Director Ray said that Russia continues to try to meddle in our elections and influence voters. Are we talking about rogue Russian individuals, or are we talking about the Kremlin?
I think you can both, and even add to that. Russia has used numerous ways in which they want to influence through media, social media, through bots, through actors that they hire, through proxies, all of the above and potentially more. I can't go into any deep details other than what is classified, but it's pervasive, it is ongoing with the intent to achieve their intent, and that is drive a wedge and undermine our democratic values.
Thank you. I have a question for Director Ray. Thank you. The Special Counsel Robert Mueller has indicted more than 20 Russian officials based on work by the FBI for meddling in the 2016 election. Now, the president has tweeted that investigation by the Special Counsel is a hoax and should be shut down. I know you've said that you don't believe it is a hoax, but why would the American people believe what you're saying about the FBI when the president says that the investigation by the Special Counsel is a hoax, and when the press secretary yesterday said that there was a lot of corruption within the FBI? Do you have any response to those statements coming from the White House?
Well, I can assure the American people that the men and women of the FBI, starting from the director all the way on down, are going to follow our oaths and do our job.
Sarah. Thanks, Sarah. I have a question for Director Coates. Director Coates, how would you characterize the current Russian efforts to meddle in the 2018 election relative to 2016? Is it more intense? Do you see those efforts focused on a particular party? And in general, is the pace of those operations in any way relative to 2014, 2012, or is it more intense?
Relative to what we have seen for the midterm elections, it is not the kind of robust campaign that we assessed in the 2016 election. We know that through decades, Russia has tried to use its propaganda and methods to sow discord in America. However, they stepped up their game big time in 2016. We have not seen that kind of robust effort from them so far. As I mentioned publicly sometime just a few weeks ago, we're only one keyboard click away from finding out something that we haven't seen up to this particular point in time. But right now, we have not seen that.
Follow up, sir. Do you see it directed to any particular party? 2018 efforts. Is there any particular party that is benefiting from current 2018 Russian efforts?
What we see is the Russians are looking for every opportunity, regardless of party, regardless of whether or not it applies to the election, to continue their pervasive efforts to undermine our fundamental values.
Jeff,
also for Director Coates, in the run-up to the
I'm trying to get it.
Well, and perhaps Ambassador Bolton can weigh in on this as well. But in the run-up to the Helsinki summit, U.S. officials, ambassadors to NATO, ambassadors to Russia, said that the president would raise the issue of a malign activity with President Putin. But he didn't discuss that, at least at the press conference. You're saying today that the president has directed you to make the issue of election meddling a priority. How do you explain the disconnect between what you are saying, his advisors, and what the president has said about this issue?
I'm not in a position to either understand fully or talk about what happened at Helsinki. I'll turn it over to the National Security Director here to address that question.
Yeah, the issue was discussed, and in fact, President Putin said, I thought at the press conference, but certainly in the expanded bilateral meeting when the two leaders got together with their senior advisors, President Putin said the first issue that President Trump raised was election meddling.
I guess the question is, at the press conference, the president didn't highlight any of the malign activities that you have and that his advisors have. And so, should Americans believe that he is listening to your advice, or that he is going his own way when he's having meetings like he did with the president of Russia?
I think the president has made it abundantly clear to everybody who has responsibility in this area that he cares deeply about it and that he expects them to do their jobs to their fullest ability and that he supports them fully.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe this is either for Director Coates or Director Ray. I'll let either of you choose. Since social media was brought up, there is a recent case with Facebook, how they had just shut down some 32 accounts believed potentially to be from Russia. Can you give us an idea? Is that a large amount? Is that just kind of the tip of the iceberg? And then generally speaking, with these social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, how much have they progressed, or have they not progressed, in what you would like to see in terms of progression from 2016 and identifying the threat?
So first, I'm not going to discuss any specific ongoing investigation, but what I will tell you is that activity of the sort you're describing is a good reflection of the fact that we have to have a public-private partnership in this particular threat. And that's why when I talked about our 3 pillars of the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, we're spending so much of our effort trying to engage with the social media and technology companies, because there is a very important role for them to play in terms of monitoring and, in effect, policing their own platforms. So what we have to have happen, which is started happening in a way that's much more robust than before the 2016 election, we're sharing with them actionable intelligence in a way that wasn't happening before. We understand better what they need. They're sharing information back with us based on what they find. There are things that they can do on their platforms voluntarily in terms of use and things like that that the government doesn't have a role in. But in turn, we learn things from them, and we can use that to have our investigations be more effective. So I do think progress is being made. We got to keep getting better at it. We got to keep staying on the balls of our feet, but I think that's what we're seeing.
Ambassador Bolton, in your letter you talk about ordering the closure of the consulates in San Francisco and Seattle. These are 2 tech hubs. What happened there that led you to do that?
Well, I'm not going to discuss the background of that decision, which actually occurred before I came to this job, but the purpose of expelling the Russian individuals that were expelled was to send a signal to Russia that their conduct in conducting a chemical weapons attack in Great Britain was unacceptable, and this was a mode of retaliation designed to show that we will not tolerate that kind of activity on the territory of the United States or any of our allies, and we expelled a lot of the people who we think had knowledge of it or had other activities in the United States that we considered unacceptable.
This, I guess, would be for maybe the Secretary Nielsen or Mr. Ray. These meddling campaigns seem to fall into 2 broad categories: the sort of information campaigns, which challenge the information upon which Americans use to make their determinations, and then the more physical interferences into the machinery of voting, the tabulation of voting, the voter rolls, the machinery that the states run. Can you guys describe what you're seeing specifically in the run-up to this coming election in both of those areas? Do you worry more about one than the other? Are there specific threats that maybe you can't even talk about, but that you can say there have been specific threats in both of those categories, so that, and how should Americans process that, where we're going to go to the polls in a few months? Should people be confident that when they pull the lever, they're secure?
Well, I think we've said this fairly consistently, that in the context of 2018, we are not yet seeing the same kind of efforts to specifically target election infrastructure, voter registration databases in particular. What we are seeing are the malign influence operations, in effect, information warfare that we've talked about, and that's a 24/7, 365 days a year phenomenon that doesn't turn necessarily on whether or not we're in the middle of an election season or not. But as Director Coates said, any moment is just a moment before the dial can be turned up one, much as we saw in 2016. Again, not in terms of affecting the vote count, but in terms of potential penetration of voter registration databases or something like that. And that in turn can be a vehicle for them to try to sow discord or undermine confidence. And we have to make sure we're pushing back on it, which is what we're doing.
Sarah.
Yeah, so just to add, so the way that we're splitting it, we're all partnering together, but your question just shows a little bit of the division of labor. So DHS is focused on the election infrastructure in support of state and locals that have the primary responsibility, and then we support the FBI's efforts in countering foreign influence. But with respect to the infrastructure piece, we have seen a willingness and a capability on the part of the Russians, and so we are working very closely with state and locals to ensure that we're prepared this time round. Part of that is encouraging states to have auditability. So to get to that one part of your question, whatever happens, we want to assure Americans the day after that their vote was counted and it was counted correctly. So regardless of what might happen, we will be prepared, but we also want to make sure we have that auditability.
Secretary Nielsen, would a government shutdown on October 1st affect any of these efforts?
Election. So what we have done, as you know, is in 2017, DHS designated election infrastructure a critical infrastructure subsector. So we prioritize efforts. So any state that requests a vulnerability assessment, a hunt team, best practices, hygiene scans, et cetera, we will continue to prioritize within our budget. So thank you.
We'll take one last
Sarah, this is for the director and for the general. Can you unpack a little bit more about what you said there? You said there was a question for the director and a question for the general separately. Can you give us a better sense of who specifically has been targeted? We know at least 2 senators have said that they've been targeted by hacking or by people impersonating government officials. Is it members of the Senate, members of the House? Is it Democratic and Republican campaigns? And then a separate question for the general.
We follow a procedure that's been agreed on some time ago in terms of when we receive this type of information, it is processed through the leadership of the respective House or chamber, Senate chamber, and then disseminated down to the individual member who was targeted. So we have taken that action that is in place, but I'm not in a position right now to release those names.
And would you support legislation imposing sanctions on Russia now that you're saying they have in fact interfered or attempted?
Well, we already have a lot of sanctions in place, and I would support any efforts that we can collectively put together to send the signal to Russia that there is a price to pay for what they're doing. And if we want to have any kind of relationship whatsoever in dealing with things of mutual interest, the Russians have to stop doing what they're doing, or it's simply not going to happen.
And General, have you been ordered at all to, or authorized to conduct any offensive cyber operations in response to this?
So my guidance and the direction from the President, Secretary of Defense is very clear. We're not going to accept meddling in the elections, and it's very unambiguous.
Will there be additional sanctions for the 13 Russians that were indicted?
Thank you all very much. We really appreciate you being here today. We'll take a couple more questions on other topics today. Jill, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to ask about the president's tweet on North Korea. He was addressing Kim Jong-un, and he said, quote, "I look forward to seeing you soon." Are there plans in place right now? Any discussion about a second meeting? And also, he said he received a letter from Kim. What did the letter say, and did it address any of the reports that appear to show that Kim is not actually working towards denuclearization?
That's a lot of questions rolled into one. I'll try to address each one, and if I miss something, I'm sure you guys will point it out. He did receive a letter. I believe he received it on August 1st. There is not a second meeting that is currently locked in or finalized. Certainly open to that discussion, but there isn't a meeting planned. We have responded to Chairman Kim's letter. The president has, and that letter will be delivered shortly. Beyond that, I can't get into any further details.
Whether he addressed the concerns about potentially building.
I can say that the letters addressed their commitment from their joint statement that was made at the Singapore summit, and they're going to continue working together towards complete and total denuclearization.
Specifically address that?
Again, I can't go any further than what I just told you. Right here.
Ivanka Trump made 2 statements this morning at odds with the positions of her father. She said the media are not the enemy of the people, and also called family separation at the border a low point. But what does the president think of those statements?
Certainly, the president himself has stated that he doesn't like the idea of family separation. I don't think anybody does. We also don't like the idea of open borders. We don't like the idea of allowing people into our country if we don't know who they are, where they're going, and why they're coming. The president wants to secure our borders, which is why he has asked Congress to fix the law. We haven't been unclear about what our position is here. We want to secure the borders. We want to change the law. It's Congress's job to do that. We'd like them, particularly Democrats, to stop playing political games and step up and do their jobs.
Cannot the press be the enemy of the people or not?
The president's rightfully frustrated. 90% of the coverage on him is negative, despite the fact that the economy is booming, ISIS is on the run, and American leadership is being reasserted around the world. Just this week, the media refused to cover his remarks in Florida, highlighting efforts on workforce development. In fact, the pooler for the press said that there was no news made, despite the fact that the governor of the state joined with dozens of businesses across the state of Florida to announce thousands of new jobs. That may not be news in Washington, D.C., but I can assure you that it's news in the state of Florida, that people that didn't have a job before this president took office have better opportunity and the opportunity to have a job moving forward. That's actually real news and something that people in the state of Florida and across this country appreciate, and that was totally ignored. Not only that, before a journalist on CNN claimed that the president hadn't taken questions in over a week, despite the fact that same journalist did a live shot from the 2-2 press conference that the president had with the Prime Minister of Italy just moments after making that accusation. With this sort of misinformation and lack of interest that's so pervasive in the media, it's completely understandable for the president to be frustrated. John Decker. Sorry, John Decker, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. I wanted to ask you about the conference call that took place yesterday involving U.S.-China trade relations. Is there a timeline as to when or if the president may pull the trigger and impose harsher sanctions on China, harsher tariffs on China?
We're continuing to monitor that process, and when we have an announcement on that, we'll certainly let you know.
Sarah, is the goal at the end of the day, really quickly, is the goal at the end of the day to get China back to the negotiating table the way they were at the negotiating table with American trade officials just a few months ago?
The goal at the end of the day is to end the unfair trade practices that China is engaged in for decades and that the administrations before this president have ignored. Jonathan.
Returning to the question of election security, the president has said other people also may have been involved in the efforts to interfere with the 2016 election. Any of the people that we saw up here, has there been any evidence from the intelligence community that there were others besides Russia that were involved in election meddling?
Certainly, we know there are others, and we know that there are others that are considering making attempts in 2018, which is what our focus is moving forward. As you know, none of us were here in 2016, but we're here now. And the individuals that were standing up here just moments ago, the focus and the full weight of the government asked by the president and directed by the president is to protect the election infrastructure in 2018 and moving forward, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
But who were the others? Who were the others that were involved in interference in 2016?
I can't get into specific details, but our intelligence shows that there are a number of others that are looking at and considering engaging, particularly in 2018.
And he also said that they're trying to help Democrats. He suggested that the Russians would be trying to help Democrats in the midterm elections. Has there been any evidence whatsoever that Russians are trying to help Democrats in 2018?
Well, I think you can see just from what took place over in the Facebook. I know Director Ray wasn't at liberty to speak about the specifics, and I can't get into a lot of them, but I can tell you that a number of them were anti-President Trump, and that certainly isn't helping Republicans. John? Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I called him before. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted you to respond, if you could, to the CAFE standard rule that was proposed by the administration today. The 20 states attorney general that have already said that they will sue this administration. This is part of their complaint. They say, freezing or weakening these standards put the health of our children, seniors, and communities at risk. It also increases the rising cost of climate change for our states. The administration's response would be what?
That the reporting that we're reversing Obama-era fuel efficiency standards and preempting the tougher California standards is simply false. What the EPA released yesterday was a notice of proposed rulemaking, not a final rule. The notice lays out a series of options for how to go forward with CAFE standards, and the notice asks for comments on the range of options. We're simply opening it up for a comment period, and we'll make a final decision at the end of that.
On the move from 10 to 25%.
I'm sorry?
On the move on tariffs potentially from 10 to 25%, what was the thing that made the president say this is why I want to do it?
Again, the president's been clear. He's going to hold China's feet to the fire, and he wants to stop the unfair trade practices. Emerald.
Hey, Sarah, since you attacked our news organization,
Emerald, go ahead.
Can I get a question from
Sorry,
you?
I'll come to you next, Jim.
Okay,
Emerald,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Going back to election security, the other night in Tampa, the president mentioned voter IDs for elections. Going forward with election security, is the administration looking at proposing a voter ID law or pushing a voter ID law?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of your question? There's a lot of feedback, so I'm having a hard time hearing in the
Is
back.
the administration, as part of this election security push, also looking to do a voter ID law to try to push something like that through Congress?
Look, we're looking to do everything we can at this point to protect the 2018 elections, the integrity of those elections, and moving on beyond 2018 to 2020 and after. We haven't made a final decision, but certainly looking at every option available to us. It's not unreasonable. If I return something to a department store, if I have to cash a check, I have to show my ID in order to do those things. It's not outrageous that if you're going to vote to decide on who the leaders of the local communities, your state, and the federal government are going to be, that you would be asked to show an ID. Jim?
I just wanted to follow up on Sarah's question from NPR. She asked you about Ivanka Trump's statement that the press is not the enemy of the people. And she asked you whether or not the press is the enemy of the people. You read off a laundry list of your concerns about the press and things that you feel like are misreported, but you did not say that the press is not the enemy of the people. And I think it would be a good thing if you were to say right here at this briefing that the press, the people who are gathered in this room right now, doing their jobs every day, asking questions of officials like the ones you brought forward earlier, are not the enemy of the people. I think we deserve that.
I think the president has made his position known. I also think it's ironic. I'm trying to answer your question. I politely waited, and I even called on you despite the fact that you interrupted me while calling on your colleague. I said it's ironic.
Which is why I interrupted.
I'm trying.
But if you finish, if you would not mind letting me have a follow-up, that would be fine. But
It's ironic, Jim, that not only you and the media attack the president for his rhetoric, when they frequently lower the level of conversation in this country. Repeatedly, the media resorts to personal attacks without any content other than to incite anger. The media has attacked me personally on a number of occasions, including your own network, said I should be harassed as a life sentence, that I should be choked. ICE officials are not welcomed in their place of worship, and personal information is shared on the internet. When I was hosted by the Correspondents Association, of which almost all of you are members of, you brought a comedian up to attack my appearance and call me a traitor to my own gender. In fact, as I know, as far as I know, I'm the first press secretary in the history of the United States that's required Secret Service protection. The media continues to ratchet up the verbal assault against the president and everyone in this administration, and certainly we have a role to play, but the media has a role to play for the discourse in this country as well.
And sir, if you don't mind, if I may follow up, excuse me, you did not say in the course of those remarks that you just made that the press is not the enemy of the people. Are we to take it from what you just said? We all get put through the ringer. We all get put in the meat grinder in this town. And you're no exception. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. I wish that had not happened. But for the sake of this room, the people who are in this room, this democracy, this country, all the people around the world are watching what you're saying, Sarah. And the White House for the United States of America, the President of the United States should not refer to us as the enemy of the people. His own daughter acknowledges that. And all I'm asking you to do, Sarah, is to acknowledge that right now and right here.
I appreciate your passion. I share it. I've addressed this question. I've addressed my personal feelings. I'm here to speak on behalf of the president. He's made his comments clear.
On another matter, the National Archives told the Senate Judiciary Committee chairman today that they probably aren't going to be able to finish up the document collection regarding Brett Kavanaugh until October. That's obviously later than the timetable I know you guys and Senate Republicans are hoping for. Any comment on that or any potential assistance that the White House can give the archives in accelerating that?
Certainly, we want to be as helpful as possible in turning over as many documents. Several senators have stated there will be up to and over 1 million pages of documents to review, including over 300 judicial opinions. His documents as staff secretary tell us the least about his judicial thinking than the 1 million pages from his other work, including his judicial opinions. We want a thorough evaluation. We've asked for that, but we don't want a taxpayer-funded fishing expedition. We want to continue to be cooperative, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I'll take a last question, Jordan.
One more from the right side.
Thanks, Sarah. I want to follow up on the third part of Jill's question from earlier on North Korea. We're nearing now the 2-month mark from the Singapore summit. So is the president satisfied with the progress North Korea is making toward denuclearization?
The president won't be completely satisfied until all of Korea has been denuclearized. We're going to continue moving forward. We've seen steps of progress and continued cooperation. We're incredibly grateful and thankful for the remains of the service members that were returned yesterday. And we're going to continue to work with North Korea. I think that's a great place to close out. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
All right, guys. Well, quite the heated White House press briefing. Sarah Sanders ending that briefing today and really addressing the personal attacks that she claims the media have made on her. And she definitely had a prepared statement for that. And then the beginning of the briefing, the president and Sarah Sanders bringing the A-team really to talk about the Russian meddling in the U.S. election. So Director of National Security, Homeland Security, and Intelligence all there to talk about that issue. If you missed some of the portion of this briefing, you can actually scroll back on this same stream and catch the majority or all of that really from the top. It just brings us up to about 2 o'clock Eastern time here in DC. So we hope that if you're with us, you'll join us again tomorrow and we'll catch you on another stream. We're here in the middle of the afternoon, middle of day, 11:30 to 2 Eastern time here in Washington at Fox 5 DC. So this is Fox 5 Live, our stream. You can catch us on the website, fox5dc.com, or on our YouTube page right here. Feel free to subscribe to our channel. You can follow me below and our handle, Fox5DC, for all your news needs. Guys, we'll continue our coverage on digital. Follow us on Twitter as well, and our Facebook page for later events. I mentioned earlier, President Trump has a rally tonight, another Make America Great Again rally that we should be, if we get it in live, we should be bringing that to our Facebook page. So check us out there, and we'll catch you again tomorrow, guys. Have a great day. And if you're in the DC area, flash flood warnings all night, thunderstorms scattered throughout the night, so be safe and be careful for high waters. And if you're not, catch us again for more daily news and live video breaking news events. See you soon.